Anybody here? Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I am audible. How's everybody doing this evening? Are you all good? Hello. Do forgive me, I cannot read from a distance. I'm using my phone. But please leave your comments, like, and follow the channel. Also follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe and share with family and friends. I thank you for being here. I thank you for sharing this space. Ladies and gentlemen, you beautiful, wonderful changes of the world. I see our guest is here. Hello, Erica.
Hi there. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Well, thanks. And you?
I'm doing great. Changes. My name is Piwo Klaba. I represent Disability 365, and I do not come to you empty-handed. As we saw last evening, Tabisa was holding the fort. So today, ride with me as we ride for you. I am here with a wonderful lady, a champion in the field of sensitization and workplace readiness, Erica Dudoit. Miss Erica, how are you? Again,
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to this.
I'm
Finally, we
looking
get to
forward
chat.
to it too. Yes. Just to break the ice, ma'am, can you tell us about your association in the Western Cape and what it does for people living with disabilities?
Yes, so I represent the Western Cape Association of and for Persons with Disabilities. We're coming up for our 90th birthday next year, which is quite exciting. And through all that time, we have provided services to people with disabilities. It began as really just coordinating what services were available in the public. And after a good number of years, we saw that it was one thing for people to be in hospital post injury, but then when they went home, there was really nothing at home that accommodated them. And oftentimes people were told they couldn't go home because their homes weren't accessible, their families didn't know what to do, and so on. And so we started looking at their social circumstance. So now we have huge amounts of social workers that really take their hand and walk a journey with them. What do they need in order to become independent again, in order to not need our services anymore, so to speak? And then there are related services, there are projects, there are skills and work units where people are taught a new skill. There are daycare centers for children with severe disabilities, mainly those with intellectual disabilities. And then we do those services, we perform those services or render those services via 17 branches that cover the best part of the Western Cape. So there are organizations in rural areas, and I'm thinking here of Vredendal, there's in George, there's in Ceres, there's in Worcester, Laingsburg, all over the place. So if anybody needs somebody, there will be one of our branches fairly close by. And then my role, obviously, in the organization is around raising awareness and teaching people about disability, not just that this concept of disability exists, but what does it mean to the individual, and what does it mean to the family and the community, and so on. So I often say that social workers work with individuals to help them to become independent. My job is to work with society so that when people are independent, then society is more welcoming and inclusive. And that's rather a large ask. But yeah, the longer I do this, the more I realize needs to be done.
The work never stops, and it's
Absolutely.
beautiful work what you're doing. I must say, just to give us a background of yourself, what does success looks like when it comes to inclusion? Like not only on paper, but on a daily basis.
When people with disabilities are included, when they're invited to the table, when they're invited to participate. Just today, I was in a meeting and I realized that the topic we were discussing is of a process that has already been completed, but where people with disabilities were completely excluded.
Wow.
And that is so sad. And so
Yeah.
now we have to say, what are we going to do about that? How can we change that? And sometimes it's not always possible to change it. We've got legislation on our side, yes, we do, but that again, if we start with litigation, that's going to cost money. And yes, it's just, sometimes I just wonder why I do this. But as you say, success is about when people are invited, when people are included, when society listens to people with disabilities and does what they say. That for me is a real win.
Wow. It's beautiful. And any worst case scenarios that you've ever encountered since, well, wow, it seems to be a lot. It takes a toll on the soul, I must say.
Worst case scenario, oh gosh, there are quite a lot. I can't even think of a single one without exposing anybody.
Oh no, 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 no,
um,
no. That we best not expose people, maybe organizational names or government departments or companies. Let's rather not
yes,
do that because yesterday
let's not
we
do
we had
that.
a heartbreak moment where
They know who they are.
yeah, they know themselves. They know themselves. And there's a lot of them.
When those decisions are made without
Yes.
consultation with the people who actually need those services.
Yes, because
And
one
it
of
happens
one
all
of
too
our
often.
yes, one of our strongest beliefs at Disability 365 Network is for us as a community to move away from charity, to be seen as charity, but rather to be dignified as human beings. I mean, we have the South African Human Rights Commission, but are we really being dignified as a community for people with disabilities? Or are we just looked aside and say, okay, we're complying, it's on paper? And I want to bring that to you in the sense that in the workplace, especially the corporate side, have they dropped the ball? Because there was a time when disability was viewed as the in thing, the in tool. You want to associate and qualify for BEE disability. You want your ESG alignment disability. But have they really succeeded or has the ball dropped?
I think that depends, where you look. So, in terms of legislation, we're way up there with the best in the world. And other countries look to us for this great legislation. But even though legislation says it needs to happen, if it's not enforced, then you and I both know that doesn't happen. And so we do find that 1.3, 1.4% of the South African workforce are people with disabilities. I know that only 1% of the people in top management positions are people with
Mm.
disabilities.
Oh,
and
yes.
the same for people that receive promotion. 1% of people who are promoted are people with disabilities. In 1994, the target was set at 2%. We've never reached 2%. In 30 odd years, we've never reached 2%. And the president in the State of the Nation address earlier this year increased that 2% to 7.5%. And the aim is for that to happen within 5 years. And I have no illusions that that will actually happen. I mean, it would be fantastic, but I think realistically that isn't going to happen. And I think it's because, well, there's a few reasons. You know, there's a lot of misperceptions around people with disabilities by employers. Employers don't know where to find people with disabilities. They don't know where to advertise their vacant positions. And they often don't know how to go through the recruitment process in terms of people with disabilities. So, as I say, there's a lot of work to be done in educating employers, and you're saying specifically corporate South Africa, on how to go about that whole process.
Yes. And we also don't have any illusions about this reality that we're facing. I mean, we even have studies saying, even the white paper on disability stating that by 2030, these goals must be achieved. But you find that it's not only employers who don't know where to recruit, it's a matter of finding skills, people who are skilled as well. And that's where your organization comes in.
Yes.
To help people living with disabilities with workplace readiness programs, which are crucial because most of people living with disabilities, in my experience, we normally don't get that opportunity to be in a workplace. So when we get to the workplace, we don't know how to articulate ourselves either. But again, we talk in corporate South Africa. They're always the scapegoats. And it's a pity. Let's talk about the people who make the law. Do they walk the line? Or are they just relying on corporate South Africa to say, let's put the statistics on you. You guys must reach the 7%. But have they even reached a 2%? Are they placing people in the right jobs if they're doing so? Are they accommodating them reasonably so?
That's a massive topic. And that would open a can of worms. So the 7.5% is not only for corporate South Africa, it's for state departments as well. And we find there is this huge divide between the workforce and people with disabilities.
Oh, yes.
And part of that, it's almost been set up for failure, because children with disabilities, if you can't access the school system, then you won't be able to receive an equitable education. And once you leave school, you won't be able to go to university because you don't have the education level in order to do that. Now, a lot of the universities are fairly accessible in terms of physical access for wheelchair users, but sadly not for others. And so you have a group of people, and South Africa, the previous census shows that 6% of South Africans have disabilities or are people with disabilities. Personally speaking, I don't believe that, because the global average is between 15 and 20%. So people with disabilities are the largest minority group in the world. 1/5 of all people are sitting without an adequate education. So of course they cannot find gainful employment. Of course they land up getting the very low income jobs because they don't have the proper education. So in my opinion, we can't be starting with employment. We need to be starting with education.
Oh yes, oh yes. So would you say or agree with me in saying the issue of disability is still the same as it was when Jesus was around? We
Do
still
you
have to
know?
shout in the streets for a meal or shout for streets in the streets for healing. Jesus,
Do
do
you
not pass
know?
me by.
I've actually done some talks on that. Just, where does this concept of disability come from? And it does come from ancient times. And so it's horrific to know that in today's age, there are still people with disabilities that are being pushed outside of society to be with people like themselves.
Oh
They are
yes.
still told you cannot go to your home because it's not accessible, and you won't have access to the services you need, so you need to go into some kind of residential care facility.
Mm.
And I'm not knocking residential facilities. They have a purpose, and they are crucial, but it should not be, everybody that is seen as having a disability must go into a group home. That's absolutely not
That's
on. And
absolutely
then people are
ludicrous.
told, forget about having a family. You can forget about getting married and having children. That's just it. And you'll have to get a SASSA grant because no one's going to employ you. And that is exactly what happened 2,000 years ago in ancient times.
Mm.
And in some way, I often ask myself, what has really changed? A lot has changed. But those kinds of scenarios still happen way too often. And that is why we have to do this kind of work, is to work against that, is to say people with disabilities have got so many gifts. They have it's a very specific kind of person that develops when you have to live by being disabled by society. It's that exclusion of society that is the disabling factor. And so you have to find ways around that. You have to find a way to be employed, even though the cards are so stacked against you that in some ways it's almost impossible. But there are people that make it through. I want to say, despite everything that is put in their way, they do find a way through. But it's definitely not the majority, sadly. And that's why I do the work that I do.
Well, we appreciate that, ma'am. Phew, you're giving us a lot here to think about, to digest. My, yeah, because living with a disability, I must say, changes. It's a miracle every day just to exist, to be in corporate spaces, employable spaces. It's another issue. It might even take a toll on your mental health. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. I came
Absolutely.
back with the T-shirt. Vine vida dici, as they would say. I came, I saw, I conquered. But now, looking at the work that you do, ma'am, beautifully so. And you say your organization has been around for how many years?
90 years.
90 years.
89 this
And
year,
you've served,
90 next year.
okay. So you've served for how many?
Me, myself,
Yes, you yourself.
almost a third.
Whoa.
Yeah, almost 30 years. And
So,
sometimes I think to myself, what have you actually accomplished in 30 years? Because it looks as if I've been doing nothing. But every time you think you've made it, that
mhm.
there is